Good evening, friends. Welcome to our panel consisting of esteemed writers and poets from across the globe on diasporic Indian writers rooted in culture or transformed by distance. Today, we explore how Indian writers living abroad navigate questions of identity, authenticity, and cultural memory. Do they write from nostalgia or from a renewed lens shaped by distance? Does language shape or dilute their connection to Indian storytelling? And who are they writing for? India, the West, or both? Let's drive let's dive into how migration shapes their literary voice and the evolving identity of Indian literature on the global stage. But before that, let's understand the literary works of our dear panelists. So, Pallavi Jain, we would like to hear from you. What all do you do in the world of literature?
Hi, good evening from Bahrain. Actually, I started writing at very early age as assignments in language, English and Hindi. So I normally write poetry in English and Hindi, and in both languages. I have published in many anthologies and in local newspaper and stuff. Yeah.
And your
So
country?
India, I
For the
belong to India. Yeah,
but
I'm
right
an
now, where
Indian.
are you?
I'm in Bahrain now.
You are in Bahrain. Great.
Yes.
So we are glad to meet you, Pallavi.
Thank
Friends,
you.
Pallavi Jain is from Bahrain. So let us move on. And I would like Anita Nahal to tell about her writings and your country first, of course, the country where you're staying right now.
Good morning. I'm in the US near Washington, D.C., originally from New Delhi. And while by profession I'm an historian and a professor of history, however, writing is my passion. Also, like Pallavi, been writing very early since I was 9 or 10. Started writing poetry, published book of poems very early on, which is now out of print. And then when my son was born, I started writing for children, and three books of children's books came out. Then I went back to poetry for a long period. There was a gap. I left India, moved to the States, raised my son, and that gap, I kind of kept writing, but not really publishing as much. But then 2017 onwards, went back to publishing in lots of journals. I have 5 books of poetry published, a number of anthologies, a couple of children's books, and one novel. And just for everyone, this is my latest book. It's a collection called Animals, and it's a poetry collection on the mistreatment of animals by certain human beings. So thank you for inviting me to your show. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, dear Anita. And Meenakshi, can
Okay,
you please?
well,
Yeah.
congratulations, Anita, first of all, for your new book. And thank you, Neelam, for this beautiful, I mean, very nice, thought-provoking questions that I was going through, and actually when I was in teaching in college, I was teaching multicultural education. So a lot of these issues came up even then. But as for writing, I've been writing since my very childhood because as I mentioned many times, my mother was an author, writer, poet, everything. And so we used to just get inspiration from her, and I started writing. I have been publishing when I was even in college, and I think more writing came much. I mean, then kind of a little stagnant period happened because of the family moving to the USA. Luckily, my husband was also very much into, I mean, he was a physicist, but very much into writing and literature and arts and everything. So his influence was also very great. And then, but a little bit stagnant period came for me for writing, but it is inside me. It's in my veins, and I've been writing in all kinds of genre. I'm also a bilingual writer. I write poetry, stories, both in Hindi and English, as well as other things. So that's about it. My few books have been published, and also did academic writing. In fact, I'm also on the editorial board of a peer-reviewed journal for National Louis University, and I'm supposed to be writing. I should have to finish it today, writing my editorial for that day. So
That's so wonderful. That's so fun, wonderful. And I think the thread that binds everybody on this panel today is that all of them started writing from their children, and including the host. I also started writing from my childhood. So, the first question to you, Pallavi, is how do Indian diasporic writers balance nostalgia for their homeland with the evolving influences of their adopted country, which for you happens to be Bahrain?
Yeah. Actually, uh, we are more Indian when we are out of India. So, it's like when you are making a puzzle and, you know, where you are very inside the puzzle. I mean, you have to step out to find the correct piece. So that is what happens with NRIs, when you are away from India, you know the importance of everything, and you want your children to follow certain culture. So that's what happened with me also. When I was in India, it was part of life, it was routine. So, you don't pay attention, you take it for granted. It's just when you step out, then you feel the importance and you want to put in your 100% to remain what you were.
Great, great. So Pallavi's view is she remained an Indian by heart. But let us ask Meenakshi the same question. How do Indian diasporic writers balance nostalgia for their homeland with the evolving influences of their adopted country?
okay. So when I came here, I came as a first generation Indian as a student. On my husband was on a student visa, so there. And when I came, there were not too many Indians here. And I did bring in my own Indian culture, because when you talk about cultural influences, we have to understand what that is. That is the value system at home, and also like language, cuisine we eat, festivals, clothes we wear, and all that are like that. And when I came here, we used to meet with many friends, like a group of friends, a smaller circle that time, and we would celebrate Diwali, Holi, and all that stuff together. And it was like a whole community thing. So we sort of blended in our own culture into that. And I can go further into, like, once we have our children, how the this cultural thing gets diluted, but for the first generation, it stays there forever.
Great, great. So, what are your views, Anita? Do you agree to what Pallavi and Meenakshi said, or are your views something different?
I certainly agree, first of all, with both of them, components of what both they have said. When you step out of a culture, you tend to then, especially in passing on, legacies to your future generation, you tend to, like celebrating festivals or wearing clothes, as Meenakshi also said. So both are correct. I think in what happens is that the since I'm an historian by profession, the push and pull factors of when you leave your homeland are very critical in then developing your personality after you leave. If the push factor is very strong, then you tend to remember your nation less in a, oh, I'm missing India, in that sense. That nostalgia is not that deep, and you tend to retain all. And that the beauty of, I think, immigrant people is they try to retain the good points of the culture they had left behind and adopt some from the new nation. So in my case, nostalgia has never been that strong. It's there, but it's not something that I'm, inherently missing. I'm very keen and eager to learn about, or I was, and I still am, what the new nation that became my nation. And I've tried to mix the two, of the current nation, the United States, and the past. And in my writings, that's what comes forth. And even when people say, you're Indian American and there is a hyphen, I don't use the hyphen. I will say Indian and American. There's no hyphen between the two words, because to me that's just an artificial thing. Why the need of classifying that hyphen? So That's my view.
So, do you agree with the statement, when in Rome, do as the Romans do?
No, not necessarily. I don't think so. You must do what's in Rome or wherever you are. What is best? Take the positive things from another culture. So, because that could be a very generic, general statement. When you in Rome, do like the Romans, and it's a kind of like a romanticized, sentence. But I think one needs to pick up the best from that culture and also retain the best from yours, and try to have an amalgam of the two and pass on those traditions and the new legacies to your children. That's the hope. Whether that happens or not, that's in reality we see it happens in many cases, in some it doesn't. But try to pick up the positive of both cultures.
What are your views, Meenakshi? When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
I agree with what Anita said, but actually, what we bring in with us. It is in us, and like I said, I came as a first generation. I was very young that time, so I brought in how I was brought up. So here, I sort of blended in with that. But slowly and gradually, that process is very elusive and it happens slowly. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. In fact, we are so used to English in India, but we speak with a different accent. Taking in American accent took me a while, to understand, how they speak and understand that. So it's not automatic. It happens slowly and gradually. Yes, we do adapt that all the time. It's the process of assimilation, accommodation, and adaptation. So we go through all that process.
Thank you, Meenakshi. And Pallavi, we would like to know your views on this question. Do you
I
agree with when in Rome, do as the Romans do?
um maybe 50-50, but I agree with Meenakshi and Anita, and I would add, be comfortable, you know. So I do what is comfortable, what is convenient for me. So yeah, of course, we adopt gradually. We take some things which are good in each culture. So, but the saying, while in Rome, be like Romans. So I don't think, like Anita said, you don't have
So
to.
for you, it is pyar ka vada 50-50.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, see, Bahrain is not very far from India. So fortunately, I don't feel much of difference. There are many similarities between two cultures. They are different, but there are some similarities as well. So yeah, little bit, you adopt little bit, gradually with time.
Okay, thank you. So let us move on to the next question. The question is, does writing in English or other foreign languages dilute the essence of Indian storytelling, or does it create a new enriched literary voice? This question I'll ask Meenakshi first.
Okay, so I think it enriches. I agree with that one because language is a cornerstone of identity, and this connection becomes particularly intricate and significant within a diasporic community. In fact, in my own writing, I use many Hindi and Sanskrit words, customs, and traditions in my writing, and I belong to the writing group and many other writers, centers here and all that workshops and stuff, and I write the notes in there, and they are really make them more knowledgeable about a different language. And a lot of other artists that I know, who have done that, like Alika Joshi. I don't know if anybody has read any of her books, has used perfumist and what is that called, the mehendi thing, I forgot about it. She has used a lot of Rajasthani words and stuff like that in her writing. So it's making the general public more knowledgeable about different languages, becoming part of it. I mean, the world is getting global, so I like that. I think it enriches.
Great, great. So, Anita, what are your views?
Certainly, when you're writing in a different language, I mean, English, my own language is Punjabi. I don't write in Punjabi, but I do write in Hindi, but not in a literary sense. I only write in English. My father used to say, one, and maybe that was a joke, that one writes in the language that you dream in. So when I started writing, and he used to write, he used to say, "What language do you dream in?" I said, "I don't remember, what language I dream in." But what he was trying to, perhaps hone in me was that the language that you think in, you daydream in, you imagine in, that perhaps is a language in which you best express yourself. Now, having said that, because we are from a different culture, we tend to include words which are from our own language. And, we can write them in Hindi itself, like chai, I'm sorry, write them in English alphabets. And also, yes, it definitely will enrich the local population or others who read, even if they don't live here, because they are being exposed to a whole set of new words. I mean, forget about our writing. Look at Starbucks. It says, it serves chai tea latte. And it's very confusing because chai is another word for tea, so, but they have to put chai tea latte so that the Westerns know it's tea and it's chai. And there's so many other words like tandoori, chicken, samosa. All these words are now becoming really part of a global dictionary, I would say. So definitely, I think it enriches one, not just the local population, one's own writing. When you're writing and you are including something from your own culture, you are enriching it yourself. You're putting yourself into it. And yeah, so definitely, I think it is a combination is good. Though I do like to provide a glossary sometimes, or most of the time, because many people may not know the words that you're using. So
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's fine. That's fine. But when you were answering, I was remembering the story of Tenali Ram, where he has to guess where that guest has come from, and he troubles him so much that he starts swearing. And it is said that the language in which you swear is your original language.
true, true.
Correct.
So, Pallavi, what are your views on this?
See, I agree with Anita and Meenakshi. It's enriching. Like when I write in Hindi, so when I do my research, I am in Bahrain, so it's an Arabic country. So I will read Arabic literature sometimes, English literature, to uh, include some words. And similarly, when I write in Hindi, that time also. So recently, I wrote a poem titled Samsara. So poem was in English, but name is in Sanskrit. So of course, I have to, write the meaning of the word. So it's enriching to include different languages, and it makes you more open to the new culture. Yeah, it is enriching.
May I just add something here?
Yeah,
Of
sure.
course. Of course.
Listening to Pallavi when she said, words from the local language as well, that is so true because we also include languages, could be slang words from the language country that we are now, which is our adopted country. Even on writing styles can be impacted. Like I write mostly in prose poetry, which is very similar in many ways to beat poetry and spoken word without the performative aspect. And I actually started writing like this because I loved spoken word, which has a very African American heritage to it, spoken word. So that also happens. You adopt something from the local culture and seep it into your writing. And that also enriches us in turn. So,
Very
True.
well said. I was just remembering that song, चिट्ठी न कोई संदेश, जाने वो कौन सा देश जहां तुम चले गए. So, how do diasporic writers ensure their portrayal of India remains authentic, especially when writing from afar? This question I would first like to ask Anita.
okay. That's a tough question, to be honest, because we have read writings by Salman Rushdie, for example, Midnight's Children, and another example I have in mind is someone who was not Indian but married to an Indian, Ruth Pawar Jabwala, who wrote Heat and Dust. And there are some people who go to India or go anywhere and may come back and write a novel in 4 months. So living away from India, yes, what is currently happening in India, we may not know exactly. You have to keep update, have to, with newspapers or do your research thoroughly if you are writing something about India. I think we are the lucky ones, or at least I am. Though I lived in the US as a child, and then I went back to India, and I came back at a much older age. So I think what age you leave in your home country also makes a difference, because we already have such a rich background and knowledge that we are able to retain that and seep that into our writing. And if there's something new, you can do research. But if someone is born here of Indian heritage, say, or comes at a very young age, then it might be a challenge. But the authenticity, I think, would really come down to your research, the validation of the points you use, how correct they are, the names you use. So all those are very important. Just like you write a historical novel, like my father also wrote on the partition of India. His novel was called Azadi, even though he went through it, but he wrote it many years later as part of his memory, what he had retained. And he had to double check a lot. So I think it is almost the same thing. Authenticity depends on how close to truth you are or reality you are as much as possible.
What about you, Meenakshi?
Okay, just like Anita said, it is, first of all, we have to ask what is authenticity. It is not a monolithic concept, especially when dealing with cultural representatives across the geographical boundaries. It dives deeply into personal experiences such as childhood memories, cultural experiences, etc. Indian writers from other parts of the world maintain a delicate balance between authenticity, which is deep rooted in their veins, and adaptation to a new country. We all did that. We maintained our culture and adapted to the American way of life. In Indian diasporic writers, I can name Jhampa Lahiri. Jhampa Lahiri's book Namesake, which also became a movie, is such a fantastic book. She gets used to the American. She brings in. I mean, she's Indian, but she tries to sort of adapt to the life. So it sort of tells how rooted and deep rooted it is. I mean, rerouted it is. So it's, you have to sort of figure it out. You have to keep the fine balance, and you eventually learn from where you are. I mean, so you have to adapt to that.
What are your views, dear Pallavi?
Yeah, as Meenakshi said, I loved it. I mean, she said, as diasporic writers, we have to maintain the balance. That's the key. But I feel uh, we can be authentic because there's a lot of exposure now. There's internet. So you may be far from your country, from your roots, but still there's so much exposure. There's so much ways of knowing the truth is easier these days. And it's all about, each person, our choice, whether we want to be connected, remain connected to the roots or move away. So I would say it's personal choice. You may be far, you may be born out of your country, but how much connection you want to make, keep with your country, it's up to you because it's not so difficult. Earlier, people will not travel back to their country for many years, but now everybody they do travel to back to their own homeland time to time, and to remain connected is not difficult, and to remain cultured, be soaked in your own culture, it's not that difficult these days.
Well said, Pallavi. So let us move on to the next question. Does physical distance from India allow for a clearer, more objective narrative? Or does it create a romanticized or fragmented version of Indian culture? My question I would first put to Meenakshi.
Okay, it can be both actually.
Mm.
Stepping back, you see the larger societal structures, historical trends, and cultural patterns, and all that stuff. Detachment allows for a more critical examination of specific cultural and social norms. Uh, I don't know if you have heard of Nadia Hashimi's book. Nadia Hashimi writes about Afghanistan, so she's distant from there, so she writes the critical view of Afghanistan, what happened there. And same with Khalid Hosseini. And Raja Rao has maintained a very detached perspective, a sense of alienation. And Rohinton Mistry, in his fine balance, portrays a critical view of Indian society, portraying social inequalities and injustice. Then there are nostalgia and memories also. Some of my own writings are so full of nostalgia and memories because depending on the experience I had in my childhood. Jhampa Lahiri, Anita Desai, these are some of the poets, who have written, from both point of views.
Great, Meenakshi. So the same question now I'm passing on to Pallavi.
Yeah, I would agree with Meenakshi. Both. You know, yeah, when you step away, you sometimes have clearer picture. And when you are exposed to another culture, other cultures, then you can, compare what is good in your own culture and what is good in other cultures. So, yeah. So it's critical thinking comes when you are exposed to other cultures. If you are just stuck to one culture, you wouldn't know what is wrong, what is right, because you will say, okay, maybe it is what it is. So yeah, so when you are away, you can analyze it and you can reason it and raise your voice as well if needed.
Great, great, Pallavi. And what do you think is your perspective, Anita?
Definitely, I think when you move away, as Pallavi also said, the critical, capacity that you have to assess something, because you're removed from that. Even within a household or within a family, if you are, your relationship, if you step back a little bit and view your relationships, so it begins at a very macrocosm family level. If you step back from something, you have a clearer view. You give it time, you think over it, you have a clearer view. So definitely that is the case, and sometimes you are able to develop things that you thought you were not possible. I want to give you the example of Zarna Garg. She is
Mhm.
a first stand-up Indian comedian,
Hmm.
and she has just come out with her autobiography called An American Woman, a beautifully written autobiography where she goes back. She's been living in the United States in New York for many decades, but she goes back to explain her childhood. And I think the way she explains it with great objectivity comes from the fact that she's now looking, back or out from another window, a different perspective. So, and as she comes to the America, she, develops a story. Other writers or even movie makers like, Deepa Mehta, or you have Bhaji on the Beach. It's a classic example of movie. I'm deeply impressed by movies, how they bring out elements of the, diaspora culture. So Bhaji on the Beach is about five Punjabi women on a beach in England. And, just to give you an example, they go to a restaurant to have food, but they are carrying a packet of their paranthas. So they go to the restaurant and open the packet and start eating the paranthas, and people are saying, "What are they doing? You're not supposed to be eating in a restaurant." Or you have an example like Mindy Kaling. Mindy Kaling is, is of Indian origin, and she's a writer, she's a comedian. So definitely, if you leave your country, even if you leave a city and move to a different city or a different state,
Yeah,
just the
yeah,
whole experience of travel in itself just opens up avenues that you imagine would not happen. I do want to say here in the reverse, just is not part of your question, but people who are left behind, what is their view of people who have gone ahead? They will not understand your journey or your perspectives back on India because their whole view is different. So maybe a kind of a, didactic study could be done of people left behind and people who have moved and what their views are on different things. So,
interesting, interesting. So we have a question from Sadbirji to you, Anita. Do you mean that one becomes critical after being exposed to a different culture of your own culture?
yeah, and I don't know if you want to use the word critical, but you have a deep, maybe a more clearer understanding of things. And sometimes you also say, oh, my understanding was incorrect. because now you are distanced from that. And your first opinion about how you know about certain things, you say, well, maybe I can change my opinion. So I think one needs to be open to change, of one's own perspectives. And as I said, you begin in the family. The family is a microcosm of the world, literally. Your people have different views in a family. So so I think it's not that you become more critical of the country. Sometimes you even start loving something more. Once you have distanced yourself, you say, oh, I wish when we were back in India, we could have done that, or I had developed that, thought process more. So distance just allows one the capacity to have a different or more a clearer understanding, I would say.
Thank you, Anita. So let me just thank our viewers who have been with us since long. Asha, Maitri have been right from the beginning. Satbir has also been there since long. And Meena Mishra is there. Anjali Bajpayee is there. Sita Khatri is there. Sunaina Hariram Dahanwal is there. And Sunil Sharma ji had also joined. Surekha Sahu, Kavita Verma, and Gayatri Joshi, Garima, Nisha Saxena ji, Gayatri Joshi again, Nivedita Roy, Prasanna, Purna Shah, Anup Jilan. So we've had a lot of people who've joined us, and with a in a 2 minutes break, I'd just like to thank all the viewers who are with us, because you make it all the more interesting. And please ask me or our panelists any question that you would like to ask on this interesting theme. And the way the panel discussion is going on, I'm really loving it. This is an excellent discussion with excellent panelists. So, moving on to the next question. How does the experience of migration and cultural dislocation shape the themes, characters, and conflicts in their writing? Or do you rather take up themes around this? Pallavi?
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Neelamji? I
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
little lost. Yeah.
No worries, no worries. Do My question to you all is, how does the experience of migration and cultural dislocation shape the themes, characters, and conflicts in their writing? Rather, do you take up these activities first, these things first of all in your stories, or uh, poems, or whatever you are writing?
See, basically, I feel, especially the poetry writers, poets, they write for themselves more than for anything else. So, yeah, it does affect sometimes, depends on what mood is the writer on. When we are researching before writing, sometimes the words just come slow, but sometimes we do a little bit of research. So in that research, it takes us to different places. So it does affect sometimes. Yeah.
What about you, Anita? Have you taken up such themes in your writing?
So to be clear, themes, you mean themes that are not necessarily Indian?
And about dislocation.
Um, I think this takes me back to my concept of nostalgia. I don't think that I personally give that much of emphasis on dislocation. I don't feel that I've been dislocated per se, even though there was a strong push for me to leave India. I'm a single mom and I wanted to leave India, raise my son on my own. So that push factor made me accept and feel comfortable, feel located. This is called, locational stability. Feel located in the new home that I had created in the United States for my son. So, and home is only is just a concept. It's not just a place. For me, home is my son. Jhumpa Lahiri talks a lot about that. Meenakshi mentioned namesake before, but she talks that home is just a place where we reside in, and it is a comfortable place where we belong. And it could be a person. So I don't know if I talk, I don't think I talk about dislocation per se in my poetry. However, there are themes from India that are very dear to my heart. Mythology is very dear to my heart. Family relationships is very dear to my heart. How we, our social interactions are very different. How our older people, how they are living their lives in India and abroad. There's a stark difference. So those themes are very dear to me. Or, even things like caste, topics like caste, skin color, racism, all those themes preoccupy my mind, injustice overall. So if there is something from my previous avatar or my previous location, my home, that impacted me deeply on injustice, and I see that here as well, I actually would try to compare and contrast. I also write on the injustice against African Americans. So I will take up themes that are central to my belief system. It could be for anyone, not just primarily about dislocation.
Very interesting reply, Anita. Because the most important thing that you said is home is not a place, it is a concept. So, like being in central services, I keep getting transferred from one place to the other. And, every state in India also has a different culture,
Yeah.
traditions, the way one handles life. It takes very little time for me also to get adjusted. But yes, certain stories are born in some places. If
Yeah.
I've been happy in some city, the protagonist there is also very happy. Or if I've been very sad in some city, the protagonist in that city is also very sad. But the thing is, it's my state of mind. It's not
Yeah.
about the character per se.
Mhm.
It is about me.
Yeah.
And we keep getting adjusted very easily. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the concept of pardes, in Hindi films. There's so many
Yeah.
songs on Hum Pardesi Ban Chale. The
uh,
pardes was not really, it didn't mean another nation. It meant another
yeah,
state or
yeah,
a city
yeah,
at that
yeah.
time. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
even now,
your zone of comfort when you're leaving and going to another place, that's itself a different kind of dislocation, whether from one country or to other country. But let us hear Meenakshi's views before we
and then I would
conclude.
like to come back to this point because you just mentioned something. It triggered something. So if I can come back
same
to the
here.
point.
Yeah,
Same
yeah. So
here.
let us do a round two of this. Let's hear Meenakshi's views first.
Well, first of all, I agree, both of you, all of you, in fact, so actually moving from one culture to another profoundly shapes themes, characters, and conflicts. Their characters may experience tensions of cultural clashes, adjusting to new norms and language, identities, struggles, and assimilation pressure. When I came to this country, I was 19-year-old, and of course, I was not exposed to so many different things, even in India, so my husband's boss, he was American, of course, older person, and he invited us. I went in my sari and everything, and my husband was there. We were both very young. He was a student, and then he was asking, what do you would like to drink? And I had no idea what to say. So I looked at my husband. He ordered scotch and water or something like that, and I said, maybe that's the norm. Maybe I should also order scotch and water. So I did scotch and water. So
So I hope you reached home safely.
I ended up with that. And when we were sitting in the car coming, and God, that made me dizzy for a while. But anyway, coming back, coming back in the car, my husband said, "I didn't know you drink." I had never tasted anything in life before like that. So it was so you get used to things. It doesn't happen. Automatically. Now I know about all the wine and everything else. I'm used to it. I know it. So I'm just giving you one example just to give you that. It takes time.
Yeah, just for some laughter also.
So Anita Desai also portrays the sense of rootlessness in her book by Blackbird, and Champa Lahiri in her namesake. She gets used to the American way of life. And Chitra Banerjee Divakarni in Mistress of Spices explores the complexities of migration. So it is there. But it takes time to get used to it.
So, Anita, you wanted us to come back.
Yeah, thank you. You said in the end, you go through so much change from state to state, and I'm looking at the comments. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who has joined your program. They are asking questions, but they go by so quickly that you're not able to remember them. But what I wanted to say about dislocation is that moving, whether it's a state, but particularly a country, it's not an easy process. Even if you do it with, whether you're getting married or going, or you're having an education and going for education, or like I left India because I wanted to create a new life for my son and I. So it's not easy to uproot yourself and then to gain roots in another culture. It takes a lot out of you. It is in a way a trauma, depending on the factors. And so, as long as you keep your mind open to the positivity of what may emerge from it, I think you can turn out to be as reasonably balanced individuals, and you allow that to move into your writings as well, or in your relationships with or the way you bring up children. So, just wanting to say that it's not an easy process, and it takes its toll, and yeah.
Can I also, can I
Can
also
I add some? Yeah.
All of you can. So, but first, Pallavi had said. So let me go to Pallavi first.
Thank you, Neelam. Actually, I want to add 3 points. Firstly, sometimes it's a compulsion when you move places. But majorly these days, it's out of choice because we are looking for better life, a change of lifestyle. So it's choice by choice. Secondly, as Neelam, you said, home is state of mind. It's not the place, it's not the culture, it's the state of mind, as you rightly said. And third thing is when you move places, whether within same country or another country, another culture, you want to be accepted. That's the biggest challenge.
yeah, exactly.
When even when the children they move from one school to another school, what is the complaint initially? That mama, I don't have friends. They do so many things to get accepted by that group. You know, even even though they know that it's not correct sometimes. I mean, it's not always that the things you do is not correct, but sometimes it happens that you want to be accepted, so you want to change a bit according to the group or the maybe peer pressure. So that was my view. Yeah.
Great,
Thank
great.
you.
Very well said, Pallavi. So, Meenakshi, you wanted to add
Yeah,
something?
before I add what I wanted to say before, I want to just answer Pallavi's thing about children. It is on the second generation children, second or third, not third so much, but second. It's even harder, because I remember my daughter, her name is Kavita. She went to school and she came home crying one day. She said, "Why did you name me Kavita? I don't want to be Kavita. Change my name to Christina or something." I said, and I had to sit down with her and tell her that, this is such a beautiful name and everything. Same thing about Indian food, like here they take sandwiches like peanut butter sandwich or something like that. And sometimes I would make like a roll with the thing
Rata.
that we cook, and they did not like it because of the spicy smell. People made fun of my food, so they don't want to take it. So that was in answering Pallavi's, what she said about children. Um, but overall, I think Indian diasporic literature offers a rich tapestry of voices, perspectives on the experiences of migration, cultural conflicts, and search for identity. Thus, it provides valuable complexities of human experience through its themes and characters. So it is good.
Great, great, Meenakshi. So, my next question, maybe the last today. Do diasporic Indian writers contribute to an evolving hybrid literary identity? Or is there a risk of losing touch with their cultural roots over generations? So, this is the question which you were wanting to really answer, Meenakshi, about the next generation. So, maybe you can begin first.
Okay, so the first generation, no matter how long they stay there, they stay there with the. I mean, their roots are still there, and they bring in their culture experiences and everything. But as the second and third generations come, it gets diluted, even in languages. I mean, my children, no matter how hard we tried, they end up speaking English. And my granddaughter, she doesn't even speak Hindi, so we had to put her in Hindi school so she can at least say few words, and we have to make efforts to say, oh, speak to Veda in Hindi, so she knows a little bit of Hindi. So it is kind of hard. But you know what? But she loves Indian dresses. She loves to put bindi on. In fact, in her school, all her little girls are putting bindi, American or whatever, so they are doing it. So it's like a mixture. It becomes mixture. It's a rainbow of colors. Like I said before that I was used to teach multicultural education. It's not a melting pot. It should be a rainbow of different colors. We should respect all different cultures and that learn from them. It becomes more enriching.
Great, great. In fact, I studied in a regional engineering college, which is now known as NIT. So we would have 50% people from that state, and 50% students had to be from other states, and the quota was fixed for each state. So, that gave me a wonderful experience of mingling with culture.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a UPite, born and brought up in Maharashtra. My forefathers also shifted to Rajasthan. My grandfather was born in Bengal. So, and my husband is from Bihar. So I had so many means parts of me that made Neelam, and I enjoy that. I don't feel this is a disadvantage. When people ask me from where I am, I just reply I'm an Indian.
Yes.
So, the question I would like to again put up to Anita: do diasporic Indian writers contribute to an evolving hybrid literary identity, or is it there a risk of losing touch with their cultural roots over generations?
So I think, the time is a big thing, and the generation that you belong to, I definitely believe that Indian diaspora writers contribute to a hybrid identity. And I actually would say it's like a Venn diagram. I've always used that diagram, very often to describe myself. I'm not one person, but even when I was in India, I'm not just an Indian. I'm a human being, first of all. That's our primary goal. We are all humans. Then I'm a woman, then I'm, born in India, now American. I'm a single mom. I'm a professor. There's so many layers we all have to our identity, which keep lapping and overlapping each other like in a Venn diagram. So, and at sometimes one particular layer of ours becomes more prominent. At another time, something else becomes prominent depending on where you are. If I'm in a group of Indians in the United States, maybe that Indianness will come out more. Recently, I was at an event where I had a discussion with Arundhati Subramaniam. She was visiting this area, and the audience was 100% Indian. And so I was, talking with them and, laughing about jokes in India, blah, blah. But if I were to go into an audience which is more Western, I may not do that, obviously. And then, so that hybrid identity comes out in the way we speak, in the clothes we wear. I do feel that, many times I would wear Indian clothes to Indian functions, but I do not when I'm going to work, because not just because I want to be accepted, because there is no need for me to display my special Indianness. I'm a human being. I'm here. I'm working. I can go in pants as well. I don't have to wear a sari and prove a point. So I don't like to do that, and that's my personal wish. As terms of passing on to the next generation, I think it's a very difficult task to teach the next generation your language. And I am set on doing that. I have seen many families who do not, or maybe they tried, they were not successful. And I asked them, what was the reason? So I have made it my mission. My son, of course, came here with me when he was 13. He knew Hindi and Punjabi, and that continued. With my grandchild, I'm the one in the house who is speaking Hindi, and I try not to speak any other language with him. My son speaks to him in English and Hindi. My daughter-in-law in English. She's Bengali. When her family comes, they speak to the child only in Bengali. Our person who comes to help us, she knows Spanish, or she's speaking a bit of Spanish. So what I mean to say is that language is critical, and you have to make it your mission, even if it's uncomfortable, even if there are people in the house who don't speak that language. You have to speak that language to the child, because once the child doesn't know the language, that's it. The discontinuation, dislocation from roots will then happen. Because when you go back, you don't notice how to speak your language, you cannot converse with people, jokes, movies, music, food, the real essence of your roots is gone. So that's what I believe in, and that's what I'm doing. So I don't know if I answered your question. I went into so many different
No,
points.
no, you have answered my question. And I had an interesting take on this. Like, I also tried to adapt to the state I go to. Like, in morning, when my steno comes to my room, the question I ask her is Kemo Nachen. So,
There you go. Mhm.
so yeah, so we are
Language
trying
is
to
critical.
adapt also, because like I know what it is to stay in different states, so I'm now trying to pick up few words in Bengali.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yes, we try to pick up a little, we try to retain what we are. And here I would like to take up two or three very interesting comments. Sadhbir ji is saying because of the pollution, she wants her kids to study in the hills. And Anjali is saying there is a need for new glasses to see life and the world with a fresh perspective. And Asha is saying, I think the literature has also helped us to peek into the challenges the Indian diaspora faces. So, Asha is further adding that language is an important connection. And kudos, Anita. Thanks for the importance of language. So, I hope you're happy with your answer with so many comments.
Thank you. Thank
So, Pallavi, your answer for this question remains. And for those who joined us later, I would like to repeat it. Do diasporic Indian writers contribute to an evolving hybrid literary identity? Or is there a risk of losing touch with their cultural roots over generations?
So yeah, Neelam, actually, there's a lot of responsibility on writers. We do indulge in, hybrid identity at times. And I will agree with Meenakshi that it does get diluted with next generation, second generation, third generation. But as Anita said, it is a language which connects you to the roots. So even I would prefer, my son was very small. He was 1.5 years old when we moved to Bahrain. So he went to British curriculum school. But I would make sure that I speak in Hindi with him at home. Even when we were in Goa, so Goa was basically, everybody speaks English or the local language. So his first language is English because, in his school, there it is the English which was a spoken language. But at home, I made sure that I teach him Hindi because that's what would keep him connected to his roots. So it would get diluted at some point, but it's our responsibility as a parent and then as a writer as a whole. When we write, it leaves a lot of impact on NRIs or, for that matter, on everyone. As we say, kalam ज़्यादा powerful है तलवार से. So writing does help, and especially when you are writing in your mother tongue, it keeps you connected. And it makes sure that, coming generation, future generation, they know the importance of their mother tongue or, national language to keep connected to their roots.
Can I
Wonderful.
can I
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, sure.
I just wanted to say that you know what, even there are a lot of talking about third generation. Basically, all our third generation are much younger. Like Pallavi said. Also, my granddaughter is 5. There are a lot of children's book now that are coming up. Which is for both. I mean, both in for both. You can say Americans as well as Indians. There is something like hair oil magic. by Anu Chauhan. It's talks about, how the grandmother makes it talks about how the hair oil is made to make the hair grow. It talks about cultural thing and all that stuff, so the book is read in the classroom also. It talks about intergenerational relationship bonding. So basically there are similarities and differences both, so a lot of Indian books are coming on, like, on diasporic stuff on for children, which is also read in the regular classrooms. So
Very
the world is getting really global, now.
great, great. So we've really had a wonderful session today with such interesting point of views coming up. So let us end on some funny note. So what do you think of the Indian food? Meenakshi.
Indian what? Sorry, I didn't
Food.
get
Food.
food.
Chole
Oh,
bhature.
chole bhature, biryani, my God, it's samosa. These are very well liked by all the Americans. Some of the Indian restaurants are full of Americans here more than Indians sometimes. So yeah,
True.
they love Indian food, and they love spicy food too now,
तो जब तक
especially.
रहेगा समोसे में आलू,
Ah,
मीनाक्षी रहेगी इंडियन की.
samosa is a favorite of everyone.
So, oh, Anita, something funny on this?
Oh, yes. I mean, food is, if your tummy is happy, then, you're a happy person. So, and that is one part of nostalgia that especially in rainy days, my mom used to love making aate ka
Pakoras.
halwa and, besan ki barfi, gajak halwa, especially during rainy times. So when it rains here, I'm, out with my pots and pans and making atta ka halwa and besan ki barfi, and then I share it with others, of course. Food is something which ties us, with our culture. And yes, foreigners absolutely love Indian food. And Indian food is also here, at least in the United States. I've seen many restaurants that are like a fusion. They would have elements of India and then have elements of Western. They're trying to attract, foreigners to Indian food because, Chinese food is very popular. And I think that that is because the Chinese food was able to kind of slightly mold the food to the Western palate. Indians are now doing it less spicy food and kind of a mingling and fusion. So yeah.
So, what are your views on Indian food, Pallavi? I remember that we met at Nathu's where we had some chat.
Bikaner wala or Nathus, I don't know. Yeah, yes. Chaat, but I believe chaat is popular worldwide. I mean,
Yes.
some people like it little sweet. I remember almost 8 years back, I went to Germany, Frankfurt, and we went to this Indian restaurant, South Indian chain. So I was so surprised to see local Germans eating cheese dosa with beer, and they were just relishing it. And of course, idli is amongst the top healthiest food in the list of world healthy food list. So yeah, Indian food is getting popularity, and we are happy. So we get to eat it wherever we go.
So, writing and food. That is what differentiates us. And being Indian and adapting to a new country with happiness, with glee, is more what makes you different. So, hope for more and more of your writings coming up, your books, and I would love to read all your books. I just reviewed Meenakshi's. No, I did a poetry reading of Meenakshi's book a few days ago. So I would love to read your books. Thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful session, and hope to have more sessions in future. If
Thank
you would
you.
like to end with a line for the viewers who joined and who've been there throughout the session, Anita.
For the viewers, I thank you so much for taking time out of your day and night. It's nighttime in India. So thank you so much for coming and listening and offering your comments and your asking questions. Thank you so much. And I thank you, Neelam, for conducting these programs. I mean, you are literally a master of these programs. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your kind words.
And that is the
Caller
truth.
नहीं है नहीं तो caller ऊपर कर लेती. So Pallavi, what would you like to say to our viewers?
Keep reading and try to write as well. And thank you, Neelam, for such a wonderful program. And I'm enjoying it. It's always nice to share your point of view. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi and Meenakshi.
Thank
Your spices.
thank you so much, all the, people who joined us. And thank you, Neelam. I meant to tell you, in fact, I wanted to write to you separately saying you had such thought-provoking questions. A whole research paper could be written on each and every topic there, actually. It's beautifully written, beautiful questions, actually. I really enjoyed it very thoroughly. And, that's all. Thank you so much. And
Neelam, can I add a sentence here if you don't mind?
Sure, sure, sure.
Just now, Setu had published an edition of poems. It was a special issue on diasporic writing. And it was how diaspora is perceived by the writers who live abroad and how people in India pursue the South Asian diaspora writers. And I had edited that issue, and I'm willing to, if you have the link, if you want to share with your viewers later on, or I can send the link to you because they will see both perspectives on all the things that we talked about today.
Sure, sure. I was also a part of that.
Yes, I know, of course you were.
I was
Yes,
See, I was
Meenakshi,
telling my
Pallavi, we
viewers.
missed you. I didn't know you, but next time something like this comes out, we'll reach out to you, Pallavi.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I keep sending my poems to Setu. So
Acha,
they
acha.
have published, I think twice they have published.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
very nice journal. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay, so friends, here we wind up our session, the wonderful session that we had today. And 1 hour has passed, and we didn't even realize it was just like chit chatting over a cup of tea. So, thank you, Meenakshi. Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Pallavi. And thanks to all the lovely viewers who joined us.
thank you.
Namaskar. Bye bye.
Thank you.
See you
Take care,
again with
everyone.
some.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
See you for some wonderful session again. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Sure.
Bye.
Sure.
Bye.